it's really a bad system. Here you go. You got me going. It's just a bad system. Much different than where these other conferences go and play their, 6-6 teams that they got to go play, or 5-5 teams at the time. Just totally different.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hope all of you having a great day. Hope all of you having a great start to your weekend. If not, hope this video can make it a little bit better. Man, oh man, we got to talk about the man, the myth, the legend himself, Lane Kiffin. And by the way, I don't know if some of y'all keep up with the weather or enjoy it and like it as much as myself, but there's a chance of a big snowstorm hitting the southeast, especially northern Alabama and southern Tennessee this time next week. So be on the lookout for that. Get your bread and milk, because you know how it gets in the southeast when there's even a chance for snow. I really enjoy keeping up with the weather. However, this is not a weather channel. Last time I checked, this is a college football channel. And we would not be doing no intro, none of that. I don't got time to waste. I got a busy day on my hands. I'm sure you guys are extremely busy as well. So we're getting straight into this. This is the one and only topic we're going to be talking about. So as we all know, Mr. Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss had a very, and I would label it as a very, very, very disappointing season. This was Lane Kiffin's best Ole Miss team by far. It's not even debatable. By far, the best team. And yeah, they just laid an egg. They beat Georgia this year. Didn't just beat them. They dominated Georgia, and still, with the new playoff expansion, couldn't make the 12-team playoff. They lost not one, not two, but 3 games, and in all 3 of those games, they had a great shot of winning. Lost to arguably the worst team in the SEC, and what makes this one so bad is it was at home as well. They lost to Kentucky, followed that one up by losing to LSU. As to how they lost that LSU game, no idea. That one was worse than Kentucky, if you ask me, because there was like 9, 10, maybe even 11 different times in that game where Ole Miss could have ended it, but nope. Continue to keep LSU in the game, and we know what happens if you keep people in the game. Eventually, you're going to slip up, and they're going to win it. That's what happened. LSU wins that one. And then last but not least, they lose to Florida. Florida one wasn't that bad because Florida was reeling at the end of the season, playing extremely inspired football. I would label the Kentucky one and LSU one as really bad ones. They should have won those. And in the Kentucky game, and this is how funny the game of college football is, it's a game of inches. Kentucky fumbled it into the end zone. And if Ole Miss recovers that, they win the game. But guess what? Kentucky recovers a fumble, and it's a touchdown, and that was a difference maker. But what's really interesting about all those games, and I continue to bring this up when we talked about should Ole Miss make the playoff, and we're going to talk more about that in just a second, is they were all nail-biters. They all came down to the end. And for that reason alone, that's why I felt like it was such an odd season, because yes, they shouldn't have lost to any of those 3 teams, but at the same time, it's not like they got blown out. It's not like they embarrass themselves. For example, Alabama just straight up got blown out against Oklahoma, but Ole Miss, they never had a loss like that. I share all that with you to say this. It leads me into my next point perfectly. That was Lane Kiffin's argument as to why Ole Miss should have been in the playoffs, and also, look at who they beat. They had some nice wins. And Lane Kiffin has been very adamant on social media that, oh yeah, we felt like we should have got in, yada, yada, yada. You know what he's been saying. Moving along here, as we all know, or should know by this point in time, Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, they just got done winning the, the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl? It was something like that. One of those quote-unquote meaningless bowl games. They played Duke, and they beat the absolute snot out of them. Duke never stood a chance. It is worth mentioning, Duke didn't have their starting quarterback, Malik Murphy. He entered the transfer portal, but even with Malik Murphy out there, I still think Ole Miss wins this game easily. They scored 52 points. But what we're here to take a look at in this video is something Lane Kiffin said before the game and also after the game. There's a video that's been making its rounds on social media, courtesy of Lane Kiffin, because he even quote tweeted this. I haven't even seen this video. I've been saving it to give you guys my live reaction. Reminder, this was before the game.
It's why it's just different. It's just totally different. And these comparisons of other conferences and ACC and Big 12, I mean, it's just like, you might as well be in different leagues, not conferences, different leagues. Like here's the NFL, here's the SEC, here's those few Big 10 teams, and then here's everybody else.
Before we go any farther, whether you like it or not, this is a cold, harsh, not just truth, but also reality of college football. Lane Kiffin has just said, or he said, what I have been saying the past, 10 years, 20 years, however long I've been making YouTube videos. The SEC is head and shoulders above everybody else. And I'm going to continue to go back to this. Whenever people talk about the GOAT debate in any sport, what do they bring up? Championships. Well, guess what? Here's a fun fact for you. I will continue to say this in any argument whenever people bring up, oh, is the SEC overrated? Is the SEC not as good as we thought? They've won 13 of the last 18 national championships. 13. That's the only argument you need. And I'm not here to make this a SEC debate, but another reason the SEC is so good, guys, it's not complicated. Guess who has the best players in all of college football? And I'm talking about coming out of high school, by the way. The Southeast. Those are where all these top recruits come from, or at least a vast majority of them. And guess who gets all those players? A vast majority of those guys. The Southeastern schools. It's not complicated. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. In the NFL draft that's about to happen, like every single season, guess who's going to have the most first-round picks, second-round picks, the most guys drafted? The SEC. Like Lane Kiffin said, the SEC from top to bottom is in a league of its own. But, and I have a big but, like Lane Kiffin touched on, the top of the Big Ten is up there with the top of the SEC. Where you start to see the separation, though, is the middle of the Big Ten and the bottom of the Big Ten. They just suck. They're awful, and there's not another way to put it, but let's continue to get a move on.
So, you're going to see it in the draft. It'll be different. Like it always is with the SEC, the amount of kids drafted out of here and there. And
you can't make this up. You cannot make this up. Did I not just say this? Word for word, bar for bar. Me and Lane Kiffin are on the same page.
And so it's really a bad system. Here you go. You got me going. It's just a bad system. It's a bad system. And you got people in there in place of it. And I don't know, they gave me the list of the coaches today, Any of those coaches ever been down here in the deep south into these stadiums and played in these games that are on this? So how do they even know? How do they even know what it's like to have to go win in these stadiums?
Kiffin, buddy, they don't know. All Ryan Day knows and all these top-tier Big Ten teams know is they have to go into Rutgers. Is that some hostile environment? Absolutely not. Northwestern, sorry and sucky Iowa, Michigan State, now UCLA. That conference sucks, man. Oh yeah, I didn't bring them up. Purdue. Purdue's arguably the worst team in the nation this year. Once you get past the top 3 to 4 or 5 teams in the Big Ten, that conference is straight up booty cheeks.
In these places and on the road of teams that they say, well, these teams are 500 teams, and then we have, the week where the 3 favorites all lose on, the senior day and night in 3 of the hardest stadiums in America to play. It's much different than where these other conferences go and play. They're 6-6 teams that they got to go play, or 5-5 teams at the time. Just totally different.
Oh my gosh, dude. I got to set my coffee down. Kiffin nailed this one on the head. This is everything I've been preaching. He is not even 100. He is 12,000% right. Oh my gosh. Kiffin, you did your thing on this one, my man. It is so much harder to get up for every single game, every single week in the SEC compared to Ohio State. They just got to get up for, maybe 3 games? Yeah, that's about it. 3 at max, 4 games a year. I can't even say this enough, guys. Kiffin hit the nail on the head with this one. And also, too, this is another thing he hit the head on. 6-6 teams in the SEC, 7-6 teams in the SEC, even 5-7 teams are much different from the 5-7, 6-6, and 7-5 teams in the sorry and sucky Big Ten. Let me give you a great example this year. Wisconsin. What did they win? Did they make a bowl game where they go 5-7, 6-6, something like that? Alabama went to their home stadium. Big Ten fans have told me for years, Wisconsin, that's supposed to be some hostile environment. They sold the place out. And Alabama beat Wisconsin like a drum. Wasn't even competitive. Wasn't even close. Like I told you earlier, that was before the game. After the game was over, like we knew Ole Miss was going to win. Here's what Kiffin said after, and I quote. This was referring to his team. They wanted to send a statement to a lot of people. They felt left out of something and disrespected. What do y'all think about that? Take a look at this comment. Ole Miss had a couple of bad losses, but they also had some big-time quality wins. I was on the fence about them being in the playoffs, but on a good day, they can beat anyone. Jackson Dart is one of the 2 best quarterbacks in college football. I agree with that, and if you were to ask me, yo, Matt, who do you think is the scariest team or was the scariest team in the SEC this year? I would say it's Ole Miss, because when Ole Miss is clicking on all cylinders, offense doing their thing, Jackson Dart playing his A game, and the defense, well, they had a pretty decent defense all year long, and really good at times. When they're playing up to their standard, their caliber, I think they can beat anybody. But the problem with Ole Miss, and we know teams are always going to have close games. Every national championship winner is going to have 1 to 2 close games every single year. What Ole Miss this year, in those 3 games they lost, and all the big-time moments of those games, they failed to execute, and they crumble like a cookie. And for that reason alone, if you're an Ole Miss fan, it doesn't even make rational sense. And you can't be upset that you get left out of the playoff. You lost 3 games. And it sucks that you lost those 3 games and Ole Miss got left out, because talent for talent, and when you're looking at these teams, Ole Miss, outside of the record, I'm not saying they deserve to be in the playoff, but they arguably did have a top, not even just 12, but top 10 team. But at the end of the day, we have got to, and I'm a big advocate for the SEC, but we've got to take wins and losses into account. And here's the problem with this. If you're wondering why Lane Kiffin has been advocating for Ole Miss to sneak into this playoff and is still kind of upset about it, it's because he knows, guys. Lane Kiffin, I know he plays dumb, but he's an extremely smart individual. He knows this was his best opportunity, best chance, and he squandered it. I hate it for you, Kiffin, I really do, but you do not have much of an argument here. And like I said, I agree with him when he's stating the SEC is on a different level. They're the best. They have the most kids that are going to get drafted to the NFL, et cetera, like we already talked about. But that doesn't mean Ole Miss should have made the playoffs this year. Like they say, there's always next year. Many more things I could say. I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts down below about that woman.